It is Pretty Real with Pretty Real Plans, where we talk about accounting, CPA, and budgeting. So as you can see in the title, I will be talking about how I studied for the BEC section of the CPA exam. Since the release of my last reaction video, this video was highly requested, so here you all go. If you've been following my journey, then you know that it took me 4 times. To pass BEC section of the CPA exam. The first time I received a score of a 62. The second time I received a score of a 68. The third time I received a score of a 72. And the very last time I received a passing score of a 77. The good thing about my journey and what I did, every time I took a test, even though I failed, my score always increased. What I will tell you all right now is when you go in and you take your test, after you receive your score report, after your score release, understand what sections you need to work on. Although you are trying to improve yourself in those particular topics, do not stray away from the other topics that you did well on. Even though my score did increase every single time, I think I could have got a higher score, or I could have passed the third time if I focused a little more on the things that I did well on. So when I took my score the second time, I did very well on information technology. Since I did very well on information technology, I really didn't review it the third time around. And if I would have reviewed it the third time around, those could have been the questions that I got wrong that could have been right, and I could have probably passed the third time. So you guys, if you failed, review your score report. After you review your score report, pay more attention on the things that you struggled with, while also touching on every other topic to keep it fresh in your mind. Now, to get into what I did to study for BEC, or how I studied for BEC per se. Number 1, and this goes for any section of the CPA exam. This goes for pretty much, I would say, any goal or anything that you have in life, to have a plan. You have to have a plan. If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. Simple as that. Don't really jump right into it, because you're gonna be just jumping around. You're not gonna have a timeline. You're not gonna have a test date. So it's just gonna be this ongoing process where you don't have a plan. So the first thing that I will suggest is to have a plan. And first of all, in that plan, you need to find a CPA Review Course. The CPA Review Course that I chose was UWorld Roger CPA Review Course. One thing that I liked about this review course is that they give you a breakdown of the sections, like the time for each lecture that you have. So right now I am going to pull up the website so that I can show you all how to get there if you do have Roger, and if not, just show you what it looks like and what I did. So once you log in, you'll get the screen that you see here. You will go down to study resources, and then you will click breakdowns. And they have the breakdowns for each version of the book. They have back to 2019. So they have 2019, 2020, and 2021. So I went ahead and I downloaded the BEC course breakdown. So this is what the BEC course breakdown looks like. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 sections, and as you can see, it has the minutes and the seconds. What I did first was I calculated the minutes and seconds into hours and minutes. Next, I computed it into 1.5 times that amount, because I view all of my videos at 1.5 times the speed. I got through the lectures quicker. It helped me pay a little more attention because of how fast Roger was talking. So it made me a little more focused. So that's where you see where I have, so for the first line, you see that I have 38 minutes, and then it went down to 25 minutes, and then the 2 hours and 47 minutes, which went down to an hour and 51 minutes. So after I calculated each chapter, which I didn't do it for all of them on this page, but this is just to reference for you guys on what I did and what I would suggest. So that's when I will go back into the course and I will look at how many questions were in each section. So we go to the Q bank and then create a test. And here you have all of your MCQs, and for BEC there's actually 981 questions. So if you scroll down, it'll tell you, make sure you click all here, and it'll tell you how many multiple choice questions are in each chapter. So what I would do is I would write down how many questions were in each chapter on my course breakdown sheet. So after that is all filled out, I will go in and make a calendar. So as you can see, here is my calendar and how many hours I would study each day. So make sure you know how many hours you want to study on the weekday versus the weekend. If you have any particular events coming up and you're not able to study on that day, make sure you put that in your calendar when you're making your study planner. It honestly helps you out a lot and won't make you get pretty much behind on any of your studying. And I would also carve out a day where I technically wouldn't do any studying. This was just in case I either got distracted or something came up and I wasn't able to study, or if I just fell behind and I needed an extra day to study. So I pretty much studied almost every day, even if it was for maybe 30 minutes or so, just so that I could keep up with my studies. So this is my study planner. During the week, I study for at least 3 hours, and on the weekends, I did for about 4 to 8 hours, depending on how I felt, what I needed to get through or what needed to get done. You should also break out time for your final review, so you have enough time to review, as well as the days that you would like to take your practice exam, because you're gonna have to sit there for 3 to 4 hours to take your exam with no distractions if you want to receive a good score. Now, I will say this is my own particular calendar. The idea for this calendar actually came from UWorld Roger's review course as well. Like, I mean, y'all, they have everything. I'm sorry. Anything I needed, Roger had it. So if you go back to study resources, you go back down to study planners. So they have plans for 3, 6, 9, and 12 months. And their planner is very similar to mine. I want to say mine is a little more in-depth. If I can pull that up for you guys. So here is a copy of UWorld Roger CPA Review 9-month study planner. So they start off with FAR, and then they go to Reg, Audit, and then BEC. As you can see, they also give you breaks in between taking each test as well. Now, theirs is not as detailed as how many hours that you're going to study per day. So if you wanted to use this just like it is, I would jot down, you know, how long it's going to take me to do the course introduction, the FAR introduction, and the basic concepts. So for Sunday, you have those 3 sections, and then you have the videos, the text, and the test for chapter 1. So basically just the test for FAR 1.1 through 1.5 that you reviewed. And then it goes so on and so forth. And as you can see, they only have you studying Monday through Friday. So you can adjust this to make it fit your personal schedule. So I think that this is very, very helpful when planning to take your CPA exam. And this way you have it all mapped out, how long it's going to take you to study and to get through all of the material, as well as review. And then once you're done making your planner, you have a targeted test date. And that's what I like the most about planning. You plan it out so that it's not just, okay, you know, after you're done studying, okay, I'm ready to take the test, so I'll go ahead and schedule it. Well, let me tell you a little secret. You're not the only one taking the CPA exam. So the test date that you want to take may not be available depending on how many testing centers are in your area. There might not be anything for the next 2 weeks. You have to stay on it. If you don't stay on it, then you won't have a test date and you're gonna have to wait. So plan it out before you even start. So once I planned out everything, okay, now it's time to study. Yes, Planning is a little tedious the way that I did it, but it worked. I did this for every single section. I planned, I set a test date, and I studied towards that test date. If I needed to push it back, I could see where I was with my studying, and I pushed it back. I adjusted my calendar to make a new test date. So much easier. So after I completed my study planner is when I finally started studying. I would review the lectures for each section. So for Roger, the first section was economic concepts. I reviewed every single lecture at 1.5 times the speed. After the lecture, I'd take notes and complete the interactive practice questions. And I would do this every single section. When I took notes, I basically took notes on what I thought was important, with things that I needed to remember, or even things that I felt as though I needed to go back to when it was time for review. Another thing that I did not mention, I didn't put it in this study planner, but I carved out times also to review. I would review all of chapter 1. I would answer those questions. And then I would review all of chapter 2, and I will answer those questions. At the end of answering those questions, I would do a small review, maybe 30 to 40 questions for chapters 1 and 2. And I would do this after I finished every single section so that I'm not forgetting what I learned at the very beginning. So once you get down to chapter 5, you do a review of chapters 1 through 5. And you can do 30 questions, you can do 60 questions, you can do 90 questions. It all depends on you and how comfortable you feel. Okay, so now back to what I was saying. So I would take notes on the questions that I got wrong, the questions that I pretty much guessed on but I got it right. I would still write down notes about those. And then anything that I thought was important to remember that I didn't know while answering the questions. Because although you got the question right, inside the explanation, they'll probably tell you something in that explanation that you didn't know. So if I didn't know that, that'll get jotted down so that I could remember the next time. So now, all about this SmartPath predictive technology. I think that it's a great invention. I can pull that up for you guys now. Okay, so here is the SmartPath predictive technology. Basically what this does is compare your scores to students who have already passed. So they'll tell you your percentage target as well as your question attempted target. And basically the data that they've gathered here is from previous students who successfully passed the CPA exam. So I really didn't pay attention to the SmartPath predictive technology as I was going through the lectures. I would do the lectures, I would answer the questions. I didn't really pay much attention to the targeted questions because I wanted to answer all of the questions to get as much knowledge as I could from every single question. So once I was done with all of the lectures, answering majority of the multiple choice questions is when I would go back to SmartPath. So here, as you can see, for economic concepts, my average score was a 58, but the target was 82. And they have a status here of needs improvement. So what I would do is I would go back to economic concepts. I would review the lectures. If I didn't review the full lectures, I would go do the cram course and review some of the sections in the cram course, and then I would go back to try and answer more questions. If my target was met, I wouldn't even go back to review that until the very end. So I felt like SmartPath was very helpful because it kind of gives you a good sense of where you are with your studying. If you're doing good, if you're not doing so well. If you're not doing so good, maybe you need to study a little more, so you need to push your test date back. All of those things come into play when doing the SmartPath technology. Like, okay, this section is good, but I need to go back and I need to review information technology, or I need to go back and I need to review financial management and capital budgeting. Those are the types of things that SmartPath helps you with in your journey to becoming a CPA. Okay, so at this point, I've went through all of the lectures. I've answered majority of the multiple choice questions. and you've probably multiple choice questioned yourself out. If I felt like I was memorizing the questions and the answers, I would do one of two things. Going through and I'm like, oh, I know what this answer is. If I could tell myself why the answer is what it is, and it's like, okay, I'm understanding. Or what I would do is, I did purchase Ninja as a supplement. I would say that that is a great supplement for getting additional questions if you want some extra questions. So I did purchase them to get those additional questions when I felt like I was memorizing the questions that I was using on Roger. Okay, Ro, well, what about Sims and written communication? Me, personally, I did not spend a lot of time on Sims and written communication. I felt like that BEC is so broad that even if you do study the Sims, you could get something completely different on test day. So the only time I reviewed Sims is when I was taking a practice exam. Those were really the only times that I did review them, or if I had like maybe 20 or 15 minutes to kind of do something, I would go and I would read through the question, and then I will look at the answer to see why the answers were the answers. Now, as for the written communication, I honestly did not waste my time on studying for the written communication. Why? Because according to UWorld Roger, the answer does not have to be right. I know you want to get high scores. I understand. If you want to get more than a 75, go for it. Study those written communications questions as much as you can, but I personally just wanted to get a 75. I just wanted to pass the test. I wasn't trying to be an overachiever. So with the written communication, like I said, it does not have to be correct. It just has to be relevant to the question. Make sure that you stay on topic, and then it kind of goes back to your elementary school days where you had to write those 3 paragraphs to a prompt. They always made sure that you had a beginning, middle, and an end, or the introduction, the body paragraph, and the conclusion. That's what I thought about when UWorld Roger Review Course mentioned you have to have a beginning, middle, and an end. Just make sure that you have, you know, correct grammar, correct spelling. I don't believe that the test will prompt you to correct your grammar, but you will get the little red or whatever color squiggly lines under when you need to correct your spelling. So that was a big help, but not so much for your grammar. Like I said, the answer doesn't have to be right. Make sure you use those keywords, have your beginning, middle, and an end. Don't put bullet points. I will tell you, one of the questions, I winged it. I had no idea what I was talking about. I used the keywords. There were a few things that I kind of remembered. I didn't know if it was right, but I threw those words in there the best way that I could. And each time I got my score report for every single test, I was always comparable to other individuals. So bam, listen to me, because I'm telling y'all something. But that is how I managed to finally gain a passing score on the CPA exam. I would say put your focus on the topics that you're not too sure of. For me, my biggest struggle was economics. I really focused on economics on the first 2 exams, but the last 2 I kind of just said forget about it. I would also say if there's a topic you're not too sure about, go look at how that section is weighted on the test. I believe you can find the breakdown on the AICPA blueprints. If you go into Roger, they have a link to the actual blueprints to see how each topic is weighting for every section of the exam. So along with the link to the AICPA blueprints, it also gives you a correlation of the AICPA blueprints in the chapters for Roger. I know this isn't for BEC, but like especially for FAR, there are so many chapters. So you're trying to figure out which chapter goes with which section of the blueprints. So they'll give you a list of chapters from UWorld Roger, and then they'll give you a list of the sections for the AICPA blueprint for the exam, and it'll tell you which chapter goes with which section, which will probably help you out a lot better too when you need to figure out, okay, I'm not doing so good with this chapter. Which chapter relates to the blueprint? How is this section of the blueprint weighted on this CPA exam. I would not say ignore that section completely, but if it's not weighted as much, don't spend so much time on it, which I did for economics. Economics was not the heaviest weighted, but it also wasn't the least. So I spent as much time as I could with it, but it wasn't the end of the world when there were things that just would not click for me. So just keep that in mind when you're studying, guys. Do not kill yourselves over these tests. Take a break. If you need a mental break, please take it. There are plenty of times where I have broken down completely while taking these tests. Take a break if you need them. Go out, have a day of just fun and not even focus on anything CPA exam related. Just get that breather, and then the next day just go back and kick butt. But that is my spill on how I studied for the BEC section of the CPA exam. Although I am done, I will still be giving you guys CPA content, so please stay tuned, and I will see you next time. Deuces!